Hey Tyers, Darren here, back with another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying a pattern I call the Chum Slumber. It's a nice little pink streamer. It's got a little bit of white and lots of marabou on there to give the fly lots of action. I've also added a little bit of structure behind the front collar just so that the fly doesn't completely collapse. Now this pattern is great for fishing fall runs of chum and pink salmon, especially like this in the St. Mary's River for the pinks that come across there in the fall. Alright, let's have a look at the material list and get started. Alright, let's get a fresh hook into the vise. I'm using a Superfly salmon steelhead hook. It's tying in a size number 2 today. Okay. And I'm using a fluorescent pink Danville 6/0. So I'm just going to start by adding a layer of thread to the hook shank down to the hook point. I like to add a little bit of lead to this pattern, so I'll just add a few wraps on here. We'll start near the back and we'll wind that on. And we'll just use the back of the scissors to trim that off. Just want to press that in, and then usually with my scissor tips I'll just push the tag ends around just so that they're not sharp on the body of the fly. Alright, that happens. I'm just going to build up a little bit of a taper into the lead, just so that when I wrap the body it's not a big drop off there. We'll do that on the front and the back. I'm going to start off, I'm going to take a piece of white marabou and I'm going to strip a few of the marabou fibers off the side of one side of the feather. And I'll save the other half for another fly. But I want these tied in about the length of the hook. Just add a couple wraps here, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. And we'll just wind that in. I'm going to go up to the front of the hook here, tie in the Flashabou. I'm going to take about, let's see, 4 or 5 strands. I'm going to tie that along the hook shank here. I'm going to fold it over to the other side. Then I'm going to tie both along the hook shank. Then we'll just trim that off. Just adds a little bit of extra shine in the fly. Next I'm going to take a body braid material. This is a pearl flat braid. And we're just going to tie that in at the head. Then we'll wind that back to the tie-in point of the tail. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to layer a little bit of thread on there to kind of cover everything up. So this pink thread is going to show through as the body color. So the more that I've got, the better. If you want to spend a few minutes to make sure that it's completely covered, that's perfectly cool. And mostly at the back, because the front will be covered up somewhat. I'm just going to add half hitch here. I'm going to take my bobbin rest, put the bobbin on there. Then I'm just going to use the rotary just to apply that. Just want to make sure you avoid that hook. And you can see the pink really shines through there. We'll tie that off. So depending on the thread you use, the color will show through. So if you want to tie this in an orange or black pattern, you'd adjust the thread just so that you have a different color showing through. Alright, trim that off. Next we're going to take a little bit of hot pink crystal chenille, or estaz. And we'll just tie that in at our tie-off point. We're going to wrap back a little bit here. And what I like to do with this is just kind of like I'm palmering a feather or a marabou. I just stroke all the fibers back, and that helps build a bit of a shoulder onto the fly. And then we'll tie that off at the just behind the eye. You want to make sure you pull that back as well. Try and pull all the fibers back as best you can. Trim that. Next I'm going to take a light pink marabou. I'm going to strip the fluff off the bottom. And I'm going to make a little tie-in point here. Just moisten your fingers a little bit just to make that point a little easier to find. We'll wrap backwards, fold that tip back. And we'll trim that off. And just use your scissors. Put a little bit of pressure on that inside feather. And we'll just give this a few wraps. And again, we're just palmering the feather so that everything's getting stroked back at the same time. Don't need too much. Looks good there, so we'll just get all those fibers out of the way. Pull that feather back just to lock it in. We're going to tie over the stems just a little bit here. Trim that. Just clean that up a touch. And next we're going to take a piece of hot pink schlappen. Again, we'll do the same. Just going to pull the fibers back, find a nice tie-in point. Tie that in with a couple thread wraps, pull the tip back, tie it down. I knew it. That happens sometimes. So, just take a couple unwrap. Try that again. What I like to do with these are just wrap them a little looser forward and right at the eye. And then I can wrap my thread back over top of the schlappen and just make sure that I get the stem and the fibers tied in. Just trim that. Let's bend it back first. And then this, if you do that, then the stem is kind of locked in place. You can see that blends nice, the white to the light pink to the hot pink. Got a nice flow of color in there. Now we just have to add a whip finish and we're done. And I like to add a second one just for insurance. There we go. We'll add some head cement and call it a day. There you go, the Chum Slumber. Thanks for stopping by my fly tying channel and watching my tutorials. If you're new here and like this sort of thing, why not hit that subscribe button? I'd love to hear from you, so if you have anything to say, leave it in the comments below. Until next time, this is Darren saying, keep a hook in your vise. Cheers.